Meeting to order. Je déclare la séance ouverte. Welcome to the 25th meeting of the Special Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic. Un bref rappel à tous les...
A brief reminder to all members. In order to avoid sound issues, for those of you here in person should not join us via video conference.
I would like to remind you that when speaking, you should be on the same channel as the language that you're speaking. Comme d'habitude, s'il vous plaît.
As usual, please address your remarks through the speaker.
Understand that there are no ministerial announcements today. We will now proceed to petitions. I would like to remind the honourable members that any petition presented during the meeting of the Special Committee must have already been certified by the Clerk of Petitions.
For members participating in person, we ask that they please come and drop the signed certificate off at the table once the petition has been presented.
To Ms. May. Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honour to rise in this place to present two petitions today. The first is from a number of constituents and others who've signed this as an e-petition, calling for the federal government to examine the need for a permanent federal funding mechanism for public transit. The petitioners note that the current 10-year transit plan will end in 2027, that having low-emission public transport is very important towards meeting the long-term climate goals, and they ask for the federal government to provide a permanent federal funding mechanism to go well beyond the 10-year transit plan, to work with all levels of government to provide sustainable, predictable, long-term and adequate funding. The second petition, Mr. Speaker, speaks to the issue that gripped the country so much just months ago, but is not forgotten, which is the conflict on Wet'suwet'en territory over the Coastal GasLink, and the need for the Government of Canada to uphold the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and Canada's calls to action. They call for the RCMP to stand down and note the RCMP has violated the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People.
We'll now continue with Mr. Manley. Mr. Manley.
Mr. Speaker, this is a petition that's put forward by constituents in my riding of Nanaimo Ladysmith who are very concerned about climate change and government action on climate change. And it says that they're calling upon the government, the House of Commons in Parliament assembled, to update Canada's climate action targets to reflect science and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 2018 report, eliminate all subsidies to the fossil fuel industry, invest in a just transition for oil and gas workers, cease from purchasing, subsidizing, or supporting any future fossil fuel infrastructure, and invest in clean, renewable energy and/or other climate and socially conscious investment opportunities. And I'd like to thank my constituent Vic Bryce for putting this forward.
We'll now go on to Mr. Reid. Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The 550 petitioners draw to the attention of the House the situation at two federally operated prison farms in Kingston. The plans of the previous government to shut down these prison farms were widely opposed in the community, and so the present government agreed to keep the farms open. But the petitioners believe that Corrections Canada's current plans for reopening the farms are very far from what the public had in mind. Current plans call for $4.3 million to be devoted to an industrial goat milk operation under the supervision of a Chinese-owned multinational used to manufacture infant formula to export to the People's Republic of China. The petitioners suggest that a use that more closely aligns to Kingston's community values would be to grow fresh produce, suitable for supplying food banks and distribution to members of the local community who are suffering from food insecurity. And this would incidentally also cause our own export policies, the petitioners point out, to align more closely with Canada's own practice of never importing goods produced in whole or in part by prison labor. Thank you.
We'll now go to Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns.
Mr. Speaker, it's a privilege and honor to present a petition led by Kathy Van Herwarden from the Qualicum Beach Retired Teachers Association. They're calling on the Government of Canada to develop a comprehensive pan-Canadian single-payer and universal pharmacare program that ensures that all Canadians can access medically prescribed and necessary medications and supplies regardless of their ability to pay. They cite that the cost of prescription medications and necessary medical supplies in Canada is excessive and varies greatly between provinces and territories. They cite also that the cost of prescription medications and medical supplies are continuing to rise significantly every year, and that too many Canadians cannot afford to purchase their prescription medications and or medical supplies, or have to choose between purchasing prescription medications and medical supplies or providing for food and shelter. They cite that it's time now for a single-payer universal pharmacare program for all Canadians.
Mr. Genuis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'll be presenting 3 petitions today. The first petition is with respect to firearms. Petitioners note that virtually all violent gun crime committed in Canada, including the recent terrible shooting in Nova Scotia, involve illegal firearms in the hands of those already not permitted to possess them. And given this clear data, taking property from law-abiding citizens is a distraction from the important work that needs to be done to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. Petitioners have 3 specific asks. Number 1, reversing the order in council banning certain firearms imposed on May 1st. Secondly, propose measures that will effectively address the illegal use of firearms by criminals while respecting the rights of law-abiding citizens. And thirdly, ensure that substantial changes to Canada's firearms laws are only ever made by Parliament, not by the government or the RCMP acting unilaterally. The second petition deals with Government Bill C-7. While there's growing discussion about the need to do better in the area of long-term care, the government's focus has been instead on expanding euthanasia, even doing so ahead of a mandated 5-year statutory review. Part of their proposed Bill C-7 is to do away with a 10-day reflection period and reduce the number of witnesses required to ensure patient consent. Petitioners are opposed to and don't see the logic in the government's focus on removing safeguards rather than providing seniors with dignified living circumstances. The third petition is in support of Bill S-204, a bill that would make it a criminal offense for someone to go abroad to receive an organ without consent, and also create a framework by which someone could be made inadmissible to Canada if they were involved in the horrific practice of forced organ harvesting and practicing. I commend these 3 petitions to the consideration of the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and have a good summer.
Thank you. We'll now go to Mr. Lemery. Mr. Lemery.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure for me to be able to table yet another petition from the residents of Winnipeg North. And what they're doing is they're calling for a national pharmacare program, and they're asking whether it's the Prime Minister or, in fact, all members of all political parties to understand and appreciate the importance of having a national pharmacare program, and specifically to have the government work in cooperation with the different levels of government to ensure that we can have a program sometime in the near future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Presenting petitions. Présentation de pétitions. Maintenant, nous allons.
We will now proceed to the to statements by members.
SO 31 goes to Mr. Casey. Mr. Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In challenging times, we look to those who inspire. In Prince Edward Island, that includes Laurie Kane. Laurie is a tireless promoter of her beloved island. She's a 4-time Ladies Professional Golf Association winner, 5-time Legends Tour winner, a member of the Order of Canada, and has now been called to Canada's Sports Hall of Fame. In addition to being a world-class golfer, Laurie is a genuine and generous person who has devoted vast amounts of time and energy to a multitude of charitable causes. It is no exaggeration to say that her work in fundraising for children's health charities has literally saved lives, and I cannot stress enough the role that she has played in inspiring Islanders to get involved and to get moving. Laurie has always carried herself with grace and humility in true Island fashion. Please join me in congratulating PEI's pride and joy, Laurie Kane, on her well-earned appointment to our National Sports Hall of Fame. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now go to Mr. McLean. Mr. McLean. I'm afraid you're on mute, Mr. McLean. If you just unmute, we'll be all set.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. Usually I'm waiting for you to do that for me, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, today I pay tribute to COVID-19, not the pandemic, but the youth volunteer organization that grew out of the recent crisis to serve our community. The 9 is the number 9, and the teen is the age of the volunteers. Over the past months, these inspiring youth leaders took their efforts virtual. Dance, music, arts, athletics kept us entertained through our lockdown with free presentations. Viewers contributed through the site to the Children's Hospital Foundation. These young leaders delivered. Sadly, this past week's virtual talent show was hacked with vile and bigoted interventions. The online world allows cowards hiding behind their screens to present comments anonymously. To them, I say, show yourselves. There are consequences to us all for your crossing the line, and there should be no medium where words are not attached to the commentator. To my friends in COVID-19, thank you for all you've done and for all you will continue to do. We are all so proud of you.
We'll now go to Mr. Levitt. Mr. Levitt.
Mr. Speaker, I want to offer my heartfelt congratulations to all the students and their families who are graduating from high school in my riding of York Centre. For the last 6 years, I've had the honour of attending high school graduation ceremonies. And while COVID-19 has made this year different, the graduating students' achievements are even more meaningful as they have all faced this challenge directly and overcome it. Each year, I look forward to seeing the look of excitement on the students' faces as they come up to receive their certificates, but also the immense pride on the faces of their parents, grandparents, caregivers, and siblings. This year, our grads may not be able to see our faces, but we are beaming with pride more than ever. I want to congratulate every student. This is a huge achievement and something that you will always cherish. I hope you will each take the time to reflect on your high school experiences with teachers, friends, and all the lessons you've learned, and take those memories with you as you move on to your next adventure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We will now continue with Madame Michaud. Ms. Michaud. Mr. Speaker, what a strange time for our young people this year, and this is all the more true for our high school graduates. We're sad for them that this milestone ended so abruptly, whereas the last weeks of the last year of high school should be filled with joy, laughter, and tears, and surrounded by the friends and professors who marked them through their youth. These young people are stuck at home, but I'd like to wish them the best of luck going forward. Each of them will go their own way, and I truly hope each one will find their way to a career they will love. Regardless, Mr. Speaker, we will remember the class of 2020 as being made up of courageous and resilient youth. So, dear Quebec graduates, and especially to those of you in Davignon, Lamitis, Matane, Matapédia, wherever you should go, whatever stages you will go through in life, keep your head high, and good luck to all of you.
Now go to Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our professional support workers are at the front lines of care and deserve our support. And in Waterloo Region, we are making that happen. Yesterday, in partnership with Cowan Foundation, Conestoga College announced Canada's first integrated strategy to support the training and education of personal support workers. This innovative collaboration will create the most technologically advanced PSW and supportive care program of its kind in Canada. Building upon the college's existing Cowan Health Science Centre, an epicenter will be created for remote learning, which will eliminate many of the financial, travel, and time barriers that exist today for PSW students. It will also leverage Conestoga College's first-of-its-kind living classroom model to provide PSW students with hands-on learning experience. So thank you to the PSWs who play a vital role in our healthcare system as they promote client dignity and independence. And this support would not be possible without the generous support from the Cowan Foundation and chairperson Maureen Cowan for the amazing donation of $5 million to benefit the wellness of Canadians. May the memory of your grandmother Frances live on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now continue to Mr. Viss. Mr. Viss.
Mr. Chair, Canadians living with disabilities are used to overcoming challenges, but they shouldn't have to deal with more COVID-19 struggles when others have been given the help they need. The Liberals waited for months to address this. Then, when they introduced legislation for those with disabilities last week, they demanded Parliament fast-track their bill. Conservatives support the initiative, but we know that rushed government legislation ultimately lets Canadians down. We moved to recall Parliament immediately to debate and pass the legislation, which could have been done last week, but the Liberals denied it. This avoidable delay hurts Canadians with disabilities. The government even said it could have achieved the same ends through regulation. So do it. Better yet, recall Parliament for the summer. The Liberals have used COVID-19 for their own political ends and turned their back on Canadians with disabilities, denying them the timely support they needed.
We'll now continue to Mr. Shefke. Monsieur Shefke.
Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a huge impact on our entrepreneurs and small business owners, and that's true for my riding of Vaudreuil-Soulanges, which is why today more than ever we must support our local economy by choosing to buy local. In Vaudreuil-Soulanges, we're lucky to have so many fantastic local merchants, and I encourage everyone in the riding to discover them by going to achatlocalvs.com. You'll find a list of local merchants who can fulfill all your needs.
As our travel options are more limited than ever, I also encourage my constituents to rediscover all that our beautiful community of Vaudreuil-Soulanges has to offer, whether it's hiking, biking, kayaking, boating, canoeing, or just stopping to pick up a bite at a local restaurant and set up a picnic in the park. By choosing to buy local and rediscovering our own backyard, we can support each other while making the most of our limited summer months. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Merci.
And we will now continue with Ms. Mendez. Mr. Speaker, the pandemic, which struck at the beginning of the year, has brought out superhuman efforts in those working in essential healthcare services. It has requested incredible creativity and flexibility from Canada's incredible public service. And regarding the House of Commons, the teams from administration, the IT teams and telecom teams of Parliament have done a fantastic job, and I greatly admire them for the work they've done. They have shown a dedication and spirit of innovation for their work, which is absolutely incredible, and we owe them so much. I'm sure my colleagues will join me in warmly thanking all these teams of workers who've allowed us to keep on doing our work as parliamentarians so effectively. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, I'd like to recognize and congratulate all the 2020 graduates in Huron Bruce, high school, grade 8, and even kindergarten. Congratulations. You've worked very hard, and we're proud of your accomplishments. I'd also like to thank all the teachers, the administration, the support staff, as well as the parents and the grandparents and the extended family. Your support has made the difference and supported these children towards a great accomplishment. The great news is the best is yet to come. We support, encourage, recognize, and congratulate all your hard work. We look forward to seeing you in the future and all your tremendous accomplishments. All the best, and we'll see you out there. Thank you.
We'll now continue with Mr. Mr.
Speaker, last Sunday I attended a wonderful gathering in the city of Point Claire in my riding in support of Black Lives Matter. I would like to congratulate the organizers, Alison Saunders and Kathleen McAdams, who brought us together in such large numbers to take a knee in solidarity for change. The message was clear. We need to listen and take action to change our institutions. The event was remarkable in many ways, but one thing that caught my eye was the number of parents who brought their young children. It made me think of the song, Teach Your Children. And what better way to do that than bringing them to take part in such an inspiring show of community solidarity for ending systemic racism. Thank you also to Reverend Christopher Bell, who graced us with his thoughtful words of unity, peace, and hope.
We'll now go to Ms. Bloch. Ms. Bloch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This coming Sunday, I, together with many Canadians, will celebrate our fathers. I am truly blessed to have amazing role models of fatherhood in my life. Both my father Ernie and my father-in-law Henry have been there as voices of wisdom and reason, helping us navigate life. My husband Milton and his steadfast love for and dedication to our children. And now the next generation of fathers in our family, my son Theo and sons-in-law Jeff, Nick, and Michael, who have blessed me beyond measure as I watch them love and train up our grandchildren. This Sunday, I hope that Canadians across the country will join me in showing appreciation to their fathers for loving, protecting, and guiding their children, helping them flourish and be the best they can be. Happy Father's Day.
We'll now go to Ms. Denchel. Ms. Denchel.
It's an honor to rise in the House today to commemorate Pride Month 2020. With physical distancing requirements, we won't be seeing large parades or celebrations, but instead, Pride is moving virtual. And I'm thankful that we can come together in a new way to celebrate the freedoms that were hard fought and won by the LGBTQ community and its allies. It is also National Public Service Week, and I would be remiss if I did not mention the historic discrimination suffered by members of the LGBTQ community serving in the federal public service and the Canadian Armed Forces, who 3 years ago finally received an official apology in the House of Commons for this historic discrimination. It is things like this that remind us how important Pride is. Every person, regardless of sexual orientation and gender expression, deserves to be treated with dignity, compassion, and respect. We have come a long way, and I look forward to contributing to making Canada a more inclusive place where all can live, flourish, and be free. On behalf of the Conservative Caucus, happy Pride Month, Canada.
We will now continue with Ms. Hughes. Mr. Speaker, the residents of Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing are doing everything they can to fight COVID-19, be it by staying home, by avoiding crowds, by following protocols, by only doing essential work, by realigning their businesses, or by volunteering to make personal protective equipment. These proud northern people are meeting challenges with their usual spirit, their inventiveness, and with a lot of determination.
Month, that ingenuity will be on display again. Whether celebrating Pride, National Indigenous Peoples Day, La Fête de la Saint-Jean, or Canada Day, all of which represent vibrant events under normal circumstances, people in the North are finding creative ways to connect and showcase their communities. I'm so proud to represent these big-hearted people. I extend a special thank you to everyone providing essential services and doing their part amid exceptional circumstances. Please join me in thanking them. We're all in this together, Mr. Speaker.
We will continue with Ms. Gill. Mr. Speaker, next week we will celebrate our Fête Nationale in an unusual way in these unusual times, but we will do so with heart. I'm a proud resident of the North Shore and a proud Quebecer, and today I want to express my love for my nation, my country, Quebec, built through tradition, history, and our common language, and of course by the present. We are the unbowed who, through wind and storms, are still standing tall. At home in Bécomo, Gaspé, Rimouski, Matane, Chicoutimi, Québec, Belleuil, Montréal, and everywhere else in the province, our pride is common. It is the wind beneath our wings, and we see it in the diversity of our landscapes and our majestic river. Our pride lives in our artists. We can't wait to see them in person again, and it lives in our families. We can't wait to take them in our arms again. So on June 24, I invite all Quebecers to celebrate together, even if we are apart, to celebrate their pride in belonging to this unique people, our people, which contributes to the richness of the world. Happy Fête Nationale of Quebec to all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, my constituents believe that in a democracy, Parliament is an essential service. Accountability and transparency should never be optional for any government. But this Prime Minister has ignored the will of Canadians, and with the help of the NDP, has shut Parliament down. But Canadians will not be silenced. The voices of struggling energy workers, business owners, tradespeople, farm families, seniors, and other Peace Country residents will continue to have their voices heard. I'll continue to fight for the people that this Prime Minister would rather ignore. Our Conservative team will continue to be the voice of those who have fallen through the cracks because of this Prime Minister's mismanagement. Because in a democracy, every voice matters, no matter how inconvenient for the Prime Minister.
We will now continue with Ms. Martinez-Ferrada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 40 years ago, I immigrated to Canada with my mum. I'm a child of Bill 101 and a proud Francophone Quebecer. As my colleague said, on June 24th next, all Quebecers will celebrate La Fête Nationale. Quebec is a strong nation with a unique identity, be it through its artists, its business community, or our willingness to develop our energy future. We are all Quebecers, And our pride goes beyond our political stripes, the color of our skin, or the country we come from. As a federal member of Parliament, I let my voice be heard in the Canadian Parliament. I work for Quebec. Let's work every day for a Quebec community which brings together all Quebecers, past and present, current and new Quebecers. Let us continue to build a francophone community that stands together. Happy Fête Nationale, and in particular to the citizens of my riding of Hochelaga. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We will now continue to questions for ministers.
And the proceedings twice in order to allow employees to provide support for the meeting to substitute each other safely. The first question goes to the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Chair, the Prime Minister so badly wanted to win a seat on the United Nations Security Council. Promise in 2015. He spent the last 5 years selling out Canadian principles, cozying up to dictators and despots. He's even sent Canadian soldiers into harm's way to curry favor at the UN. Last night must have been a devastating blow to the Prime Minister. Simple question, was it worth it?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians always expect their country to step up on the world stage, and that's exactly what we've done over the past 5 years. With our engagement on fighting climate change, on peacekeeping, on advancing the cause of women's equality, on development assistance and trade and economic growth, Canada has continued to engage in the world, and we will continue to engage constructively and positively in the world stage.
Mr. Scheer.
Except, Mr. Chair, that's not what he did. He remained silent when standing beside leaders of countries with terrible human rights records because he was afraid of offending them and losing their vote. That is his legacy in chasing this vanity project, Mr. Chair. The Prime Minister shook the hand of the Iranian Foreign Minister and even bowed just a month after that country's military shot down a plane with dozens of Canadians on it. So again, was it worth it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll take no lessons on international engagement from a party that promised to cut foreign aid in the last election. Fortunately, Canadians didn't agree with them and has returned a government that continues to look at staying positive and engaged on the world stage. Yes, we have always stood up clearly and strongly for human rights, for our values, and we will continue to, even as we engage constructively around the world.
Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has sent billions of dollars of taxpayers' money to countries with economies more advanced than Canada's or led by dictators with terrible human rights records. That is his legacy. He's also turned his back on our friends and allies, voting in favor of one-sided anti-Israel resolutions at the United Nations in order to curry favor from countries who do not acknowledge Israel's right to exist. So again, was it worth it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way we've continued to stand up strongly for Canadians' values and for Canadians' interests on the world stage. It is in our interest to see a more peaceful, more prosperous world in which everyone has a real and fair chance to succeed, and that's what we've been contributing to. On the question of Israel, we have stood strongly by Israel as a friend, but we have also expressed our concern about the annexation policy that they've put forward. These are issues that are complicated, but Canada will always stand true to its values and to our approach on the world stage.
Mr. Speaker, this House voted to list the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, as a terrorist entity. This Prime Minister refused to take action and do that. He's also refused to impose any Magnitsky Act sanctions on human rights abusers around the world, all in an attempt to curry favor with those dictators and despots at the United Nations, selling out Canada's values in pursuit of this seat. Now he comes back empty-handed, coming in last. So again, was it worth it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is always worth it for Canada to step up on the world stage. It is always worth it for us to reach out and fight for things like fighting climate change, fight for things like women's equality, fight for things like protecting our oceans, fighting for opportunities for Canadians around the world and opportunities for the vulnerable around the world. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect their government to step up on the world stage, and that's exactly what we did.
Here, here.
Mr. Scheer.
But that's not what he did, Mr. Speaker. You see, when he was in the same room as dictators and despots and leaders of countries with terrible records, he was silent. In fact, he stood right beside the president of Senegal when that president defended Senegal's laws making homosexuality a crime. The Prime Minister said nothing. He was silent. He's even using Canadian tax dollars to invest in oil and gas projects in other countries in order to win favor as well. So again, when we look at this government's record, when we look at his personal record on the world stage, our relationship with India has been damaged by his action. We have a worse trade deal than he inherited. He's angered with his erratic behavior our partners in the Pacific area. And at the end of it, he came home empty-handed. Was it worth it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has continued to stand strong on the world stage, to engage with countries around the world in need of support, in need of economic opportunity. We have consistently stood up for our values, unlike the Conservatives that have slashed protection for the world's most vulnerable women by not funding reproductive rights and services around the world, by not standing up for LGBT communities. Canada has always stood up for progressive values on the world stage, and we will continue to, Mr. Speaker.
We will now go to Mr. Terrien. Mr. Terrien. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Bloc, since October 21st, has tried to be constructive, and the government leader knows this, and they know that we've always been constructive in our way of operating. We made a list of things we've collaborated on, and these are things that we've done. Gains we've made, regardless of who owns it. In terms of support for seniors, allowing people to earn a little bit more money without losing the CERB. Support for students, allowing seasonal workers and entrepreneurs to have access to the CERB. Enhancing the emergency account and the wage subsidy. Commercial rent support. We want to see more, but it wasn't easy. And helping dairy producers by boosting the borrowing ability of the Canadian Dairy Commission. We were also the first to talk about the virtual parliament, but where the issue is, it's in terms of the CERB. During this pandemic, the CERB should be help for people who are experiencing issues with their income. But the second aspect should be that the CERB shouldn't hamper people from re-entering the workforce, and that's where it failed. We have to change it. When will the government do so? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like to underscore that in recent months, we have seen parliamentarians of all stripes work together respectfully and cooperatively to help Canadians during this pandemic. We've passed several bills that were improved by the contributions of our members, but also by the members of the opposition parties. This is a wonderful example of how Canadian diversity is strong and how we're going to continue to defend our institutions and allow them to operate even in a difficult situation. And in terms of the CERB, in the beginning, yes, it was a bit of a break. People had to stay home, and we realized we shifted to the wage subsidy after, but we realized that there aren't enough jobs for everyone. There are many people who want to go back to work, but we do have to continue to offer the CERB, and we are looking at ways to encourage people to return to work. And as my colleague says, we want people to be supported, but also be able to work. Mr. Terrien, on April 9th, we had a discussion with the government, and we talked about an employment incentive in the CERB. And it was supposed to be in the traditional CERB. We had a discussion about this. We wanted the government to commit, and they committed to this in a motion. And it answered to the leader of the Bloc, saying that the CERB would be offered in order to offer an employment incentive in all circumstances. How come the government did not keep its word on this? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, once again, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. It's true. We wanted to make amendments to the CERB to encourage people or force them to search for a job. That was within the bill that we presented last week to create more incentives for employment, to eliminate the disincentive that's in the CERB. But unfortunately, because of petty politics, notably with the Conservatives, we weren't able to move forward with that measure or help people living with disabilities. We'll now go back to Mr. Terrien. Mr. Chair, when they say that they couldn't add incentives to the CERB, well, what they were proposing last week was to add coercive measures which were hard to enforce. We didn't see any incentives. The Quebec government was asking for them. How come you're not amending the CERB? Because right now it is hampering our economic recovery. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, we understand that many companies need workers, and we're celebrating that workers are coming back. But there's still many people that even if they did everything possible to seek employment, could not find a job this summer because the economy has not fully recovered yet. There are 3 million people looking for a job right now. We'll go back to Mr. Terrien. Quick question, please. I understand that it's hard to have incentives, but we have to operate correctly in difficult conditions. We've been asking for an incentive for a month and a half. We've said it again. It's dangerous not to have one because people will refuse to work because it pays more to stay home than to go back to work. Everyone has been asking for an incentive. People don't want to be victims of this economic recovery. Will you quickly amend the CERB? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. As the summer advances, we will look at the ways we can ensure that there are employment incentives in the CERB and within the assistance system. But our basic idea was to help people in need, and that continues to be our priority, the well-being of Canadians. We'll move on to Mr. Singh now. Mr. Singh.
Speaker.
Point of order. Madame de Bellefeuille. Mr. Chair, the member of Burnaby South yesterday was non-parliamentary yesterday. He insulted the member from La Prairie and the Bloc. He called them racist on 4 occasions, and I consider that he challenged your authority when you asked him to apologize. He refused to do so. He was asked to leave the House, and I ask once again to not recognize him today. Point of order. Mr. Julian, go ahead. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I listened attentively to your decision yesterday, and this doesn't apply to today. Chair, it wasn't a conditional decision for the Bloc's whip to try and change your decision, which was clear. This doesn't seem appropriate. But I also wanted to quote Chapter 13 of Boscan Gagnon that says that the chair can, or speaker on his behalf, can order a member to leave the House for the rest of the sitting day. That is what is written in Boscan Gagnon, and that is what you decided. And of course, I would like us to move forward with question period. I will continue, if I may. Madame de Bellefeuille, if you would allow that. What happened yesterday was part of a House sitting, and it was a House rule. Today, I received a letter from Madame de Bellefeuille, and I do have the intention to reflect upon it and to provide an answer, as I only received it just before I came to this committee today. I will take time to reflect upon it and to provide an answer from Madame de Bellefeuille before the next sitting. For today, at this committee, we'll continue normally. So I recognize Mr. Singh for the next question. Ms. de Bellefeuille, you have another question or a point of order? I understood your answer correctly, Chair, and I appreciate that you will study our demand, but request rather, but this is a rather serious issue. If we allow a member or a party leader to insult another member, what will happen to all of us here? You'll have the right to insult your colleague, and then you're only expelled for 1 day. This can't be the case. Today, I hear the NDP leader, and I'm deeply disappointed because I thought he was a really important Democrat. But what example are we setting today? I would ask once again, Mr. Chair, to not recognize the member for Burnaby South. Thank you very much for your intervention. But I did make a decision, and we're going to move ahead with Mr. Singh.
I want to begin by acknowledging the words of the Prime Minister today and thank the Prime Minister for those kind words. I also acknowledge that the Prime Minister has again committed to change, but we need that change right away. Will the Prime Minister commit immediately to putting in place concrete policy changes to address the systemic racism in the RCMP?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. We need to take concrete action right away to address systemic racism in this country. We have much work to do. We will do it with partners. We will do it with everyone in this House who wants to work with it on us. And I thank the Leader of the NDP for his commitment to this. And we will work together in short order on making this happen.
Singh.
Thank you very much for that response. I want to go into some details. Will the Prime Minister commit to what was in the motion, which was supported, it seemed like, by most people, most of the members of this House, to do a full review of the nearly $10 million a day RCMP budget to see where we can allocate funds to a healthcare response instead of a police response?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've talked about this over the past weeks. This is important for us to do. We need to make sure that we are spending every dollar of taxpayers' money in the right way to keep people safe and not to perpetuate unjust systems. It is not, however, an either-or, either the police or community services. Obviously, we need both, but we need them done right, and we will work with everyone to make sure that we're getting that balance right and we're getting that money spent in the right ways.
Go back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We certainly, though, need more investments in non-police interventions, and that's where we've seen some serious problems. Families have raised this concern that we need to have more investments in non-police interventions, non-violent interventions, and healthcare responses to healthcare crises. Will the Prime Minister commit to that course of action?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have heard those calls as well, and we agree that that is something we have to work on. We need to make sure that we are encouraging de-escalation programs, that we are encouraging frontline interventions around mental health, around care that isn't necessarily done by the police. These are things that we need to do together.
Mr. Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, a report of RCMP incidents of use of force was released. And I'm glad to see that. We'll review that. Will the Prime Minister also encourage a release of the associated costs of settlements of cases that flowed from those use of force?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will, of course, be taking a very careful look at this report, but it highlights a real challenge that we've seen around systemic discrimination in our country, in our institutions, including in the RCMP. There are many concrete actions we need to take, and as I've said many times, I am committed to taking those actions. We need to make a significant change in our country for the better.
Mr. Singh.
One specific element of the motion that was nearly passed yesterday was to commit a full review specifically of the use of force. Given the release of that report, will the Prime Minister commit clearly to a review of the use of force by the RCMP?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
These are important conversations that have to be had both within the RCMP and between the government and the RCMP and between Canadians and their police forces, and these are some things that we will certainly move forward on together.
Mr. Singh.
The Nuchalnath Tribal Council and mother of Chantal Moore, who was killed by the RCMP, has requested a meeting with the Prime Minister to discuss and determine immediate actions to implement in order to prevent more Indigenous people from being killed by the police. Will the Prime Minister meet with Chantal Moore's mother, and the Tribal Council of Nuchalnath?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Our government has continued to meet with Canadians who faced extreme difficulties. Obviously, our hearts go out to Chantal's family and to the entire community. I will ensure that members of our government engage directly with her and her family, and with the mother and her the rest of the family, and with the community. We need to work together on changing things for the better in Chantal's memory and in the memory of all Canadians who have fallen in this situation.
Mr. Singh, we have about 20 seconds left.
Okay.
Yesterday, the House was going to recognize that systemic racism does exist within the RCMP and recognize that we have to take action. Can the PM commit today to take rapid action, because we need concrete action rapidly? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Yes, Mr. Chair, we do recognize that there is systemic racism within our country, and we commit to taking concrete and quick action soon to address this issue in cooperation with others. We'll now take a short break to allow others to exchange positions.
We'll now go to Ms. Alisev. Ms. Alisev.
The outcome of Canada's bid for the UN Security Council must be a wake-up call. Canada lost quickly and decisively on the first ballot. This was a report card on how the world views this Liberal government and this Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister answer for Canadians? If the world needs more Canada, then why at the UN did the world say no thanks?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would once again like to begin by thanking the incredible diplomats and everyone in Team Canada who worked so hard on what was a truly excellent campaign. Of course, we are disappointed by the outcome, but Canada will continue to be engaged. We continue to believe in multilateralism and will be a constructive partner in the United Nations.
Point of order.
With all those who are elected to the UN.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order? Oui? Mr. Godin?
Mr. Godin, Mr. Chair, yes. The French translation has not been working for the last 2 or 3 minutes. Could we verify the situation? As a Quebec MP, I'd like to hear the French because this is important. Thank you. It is very important. We are going to verify to see what's happened. Probably there's a technical issue.
Un moment.
1 moment, please.
Merci de l'avoir.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Oui. Est-ce que ça fonctionne?
Is the translation working now? Yes, we do hear it well. Thank you.
Hearing me in French now? Tout est bien?
Everything's okay?
Parfait.
Perfect. Thank you. We will now return to the question Ms. Alisev.
Canadians value our commitment to preserving freedom and democracy. We've been known for punching above our weight. But under this government, the number of Canadian peacekeepers has fallen to its lowest level in 60 years. Canada is among the lowest NATO defense contributors, and our allies have threatened to stop sharing critical intelligence since this Prime Minister has failed to ban Huawei. Did our allies vote against us for the UN Security Council seat because they have no confidence that this Prime Minister will be a trusted ally and security partner?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I reiterated yesterday, Canada has continued to lead with our values. We have been continuously a constructive partner on the world stage and will continue to do so. When it comes to peacekeeping, we were very proud to participate in the mission in Mali, as well as lead on the ELSI initiative. We have been a tremendous partner when it comes to women, peace, and security, and we will continue to lean in, to engage, and to work constructively for peace and security around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ms. Alisev.
Canadians are proud to be a nation that defends human rights, and yet to win the UN security seat, this Prime Minister compromised Canadian values and failed to condemn anti-gay laws in Senegal and Uganda, or to challenge authoritarian regimes for their blatant disregard for the rule of law. Actions speak louder than words. Did the world vote against Canada because they couldn't trust this Prime Minister to stand and defend Canadian principles?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has always stood for human rights, and we have continuously stood up for LGBTQ2+ rights and women's rights on the world stage. It's a bit rich coming from the official opposition, who can't even stand for LGBTQ or women's rights here at home, let alone abroad. This government does, and we have put our money where our mouth is, and we are supporting local organizations fighting for these rights everywhere around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Alisev.
Canadians, this Conservative Party is not afraid to stand for LGBTQ rights, and we stand proudly in defense of them. Canada is a trading nation, and relationships matter. Countries trade with people they trust and respect, but this Prime Minister embarrassed Canada when he snubbed our Asia-Pacific partners by failing to show up at a critical trade negotiating meeting. He embarrassed Canada with a failed trip to India. Did the world vote against us because they didn't have the confidence that this Prime Minister would act with decorum and diplomacy that a UN Security Council seat requires?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I have to say, as someone who has been engaged in representing Canada over the past 6 months as the Minister of International Development, I have had wonderful conversations with partners on every single continent who truly value what Canada brings to the table. And I would also say that Canada is the only G7 nation to have free trade agreements with all other G7 partners. This Prime Minister has brought in CETA, CPTPP, and a renegotiated NAFTA. That is important for Canadians, and we are leading on the world stage when it...
We'll now go back to Ms. Alisev. Ms. Alisev.
Mr. Chair, the loss of the UN Security Council seat is a sad day for Canada. Canadians must be clear-eyed about how the world actually views us. In order to be a reliable and dependable partner, the world must know what we stand for. By abandoning our allies and cozying up to dictators, this Prime Minister has eroded Canada's reputation and jeopardized our future security and prosperity. If Canada is back, then can the Prime Minister explain to Canadians why we are so alone on the world stage?
Well, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have to respectfully disagree with my colleague. Canada has played a constructive and engaged role on the world stage. It has been a privilege to engage with counterparts around the world who truly recognize Canada's leadership. We have stood for our values. We have stood for human rights. We have stood for women's rights. We have stood for a free and open and transparent trading system. We promote democracy. We promote LGBTQ rights. We fight for climate change, and we will continue to do that, Mr. Speaker, and we look forward to continuing to play a constructive and engaged...
Ms. Alisev, we have about 20 seconds left.
If Canada were playing a leadership role, the world would have wanted us in a leadership position on the UN Security Council. But instead, this Prime Minister has abandoned Canada's long-held principled foreign policy. And if Canada is standing up on the world stage, again, why did the world say no thanks?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we will take no lessons from the Conservatives. Under 10 years of their governance, they disengaged from the world stage. They stood back from Africa. They stood back when it comes to women's rights. They stood back when it came to fighting climate change. Mr. Speaker, we have done the exact...
The next question goes to Mr. Reyes. Mr. Reyes. Mr. Chair, yesterday, Canada experienced a major loss at the UN by not winning a seat on the Security Council. After 5 years, this Prime Minister made a promise that it would put all his resources and reputation on the line, but he did not succeed in winning a seat. And worse still, we took a step back in international opinion. All of this because of the Prime Minister's fiascos a little bit everywhere, such as his trip to India. He was just worried about his image. My question is simple for the Prime Minister. How much did his campaign to win a seat on the UN Security Council cost us, which made us take a step back in international opinion?
Sure. As the Prime Minister has stated clearly on many occasions, the UN Security Council seat was not a means in itself, it was a means to an end. Canada will continue to engage on the values that we care about. We will continue to lean in and to step forward when it comes to promoting women's rights. We will continue to step forward and to lean in when it comes to promoting all genders and all sexualities. We will continue to lean in on the fight against climate change. Mr. Speaker, these are important endeavors. These are important pillars of our foreign policy that we will continue to pursue and would have pursued whether or not we were seeking a seat on the UN Security Council. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Reyes. I'll repeat my question for the Minister. I hope she'll listen. How much did the campaign cost, which made us take a step back in public opinion because of the failure of our Prime Minister? He was more worried about promoting his image rather than Canadian values. The Honourable Minister.
Continued to engage in diplomacy throughout. Our government has been strong on the world stage. We have made important investments in supporting a woman's right to choose. Unlike the previous government, we have made important investments in climate financing, somewhere the previous government decided to pull back of and pull out of. Mr.
Reyes, I'll finish. Chair, we won't get an answer. It seems as though this is the custom of Liberals, so we're going to change topics. Let's talk about the CERB now. During this economic recovery and the easing of the lockdown a bit everywhere, we've learned today that Cosmos, a very popular restaurant in the Quebec region, will close its doors. And I quote the owner, "What played in our decision to close the restaurant was the hard time we found recruiting people. The CERB created competition. Many employees were not interested in returning to work because of it. When will the government amend the CERB to allow people to return to the workforce?" The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm very pleased to have this question because this involves my riding. And across the country as well, there are millions of Canadians that are having a hard time during this crisis. We want to have a safe recovery and a gradual recovery that allows everyone to make ends meet. It's true in Quebec City, but also across the country. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. He should go to the owner and explain this to him, because right now companies are closing their doors because the government is establishing measures that are hampering our economic recovery. Yet the government is saying 35 of the 40 employees of this company are refusing to work because they're on CERB. And why? Because even if your employees don't want to come back and all health conditions are in place, you're still allowed to stay home. We're still going to give you the money. How come the CERB has not been adapted to the economic recovery? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm once again grateful for this question, which allows me to say three things. First, in my colleague's riding, as I've just said, there is roughly 15 to 20,000 people that are receiving the CERB. And without this benefit, there would be many families in his riding who would have been unable to make ends meet. And there is an attestation that will start very soon that will clearly show that people will accept employment when it's possible. And if we want to have an economic recovery, the Honourable Member for Carleton.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. There will be no budget, no economic update, but there will be a snapshot. I think this is a selfie of our country's finances. So, will this liberal financial selfie show that our debt has hit $1 trillion this fiscal year? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, from the outset of the pandemic, the government's priority has been to protect the health and safety of Canadians, and because of our strong fiscal position, and in particular because of our GDP to debt ratio, the weakest of the G7, the government was able to react quickly by advancing $150 billion in direct help to businesses and Canadians who need help to get through this difficult period, which is why next July 8, the question is this: will this financial selfie show $1 trillion debt for Canada? The Honourable Minister, your answer. Madam Speaker, as I was saying, this is why on July 8th next the government will show a budget snapshot to show the state of the national economy. Third time, will the financial selfie, which the government will present, will it show a debt of $1 trillion for this year? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister, 11 seconds. Madam Speaker, as economies start up safely in Canada and abroad, economic forecasts will continue to evolve, and our government, according to MNP, a prestigious company, half Canadians were $200 from being able to make ends meet at the end of every month. And this was even before COVID hit. And with personal and government debt skyrocketing, an increase of 2% in interest rates would cause how many families to declare bankruptcy? Honourable Minister, brief answer, please. Thank you, Madam Speaker. From the outset, the government has made sure to support families and workers and businesses, and it has made sure that we will get through this pandemic. We will continue to support them throughout the crisis, and we will inform. An increase in interest rates by 1% would cause how many Canadian families to declare bankruptcy? 10 seconds, Madam Minister. Again, Madam Speaker, no Canadian should have to worry about having to pay the bills if interest rates increase, and we will continue to support them throughout the crisis. The Honourable Member for Carleton, Mr. Poilievre. The Minister of Infrastructure claims that the government has funded 52,000 infrastructure projects. Yesterday, the Parliamentary Budget Officer said that 20,000 projects are missing from the list presented by the government. So, the financial selfie which the government will present, will it provide all the details for each of these projects? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister.
To make my response in English in response to the misleading words that were spoken in the House yesterday by the member from Carleton. I'd like to believe that the member would not deliberately mislead the House. So I'd ask that he retract and correct his false claim that the PBO says that infrastructure projects are missing. In fact, the PBO report confirms in
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. A simple question. If any of these projects exist, does the minister commit to giving us the dates, the amounts, and the places, and all other relevant details with regard to these 52,000 projects? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, in French, I would ask the member for Carleton to correct his misleading statement. We have presented the 53,000 projects. I would ask the member whether he would correct his misstatement.
For Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola, Mr. Albus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the Minister of Employment said on Tuesday that the CERB attestation will be changed. Could the government please inform this COVID-19 committee what the new attestation is?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, I'm pleased to respond to this question. The Minister and in fact, the whole government, starting the Prime Minister, did announce that the attestation would be changed. It will be changed soon.
Mr. Albus.
I asked, Madam Chair, for the new attestation. Would the Minister please read out the attestation so Canadians can know what they will be attesting to?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, the member is correctly asking for information on that particular matter, and that information will be provided when it is ready.
L'Honorable Député de... Mr. Albus.
Madam Chair, is this a state secret? I asked a very simple question. Millions of Canadians have been accepting and have been attesting. Doesn't the government believe that the people should know what they will soon be attesting to?
The Honourable President of Treasury Board.
Things. First, it will be asking whether Canadians have been able to seek and perhaps not be able to find reasonable work, and then the precise wording will be provided in due course.
Mr. Albus.
Due course, Madam Chair. People who lose their job for reasons not due to COVID and are EI eligible are being told by Service Canada to apply for EI, and they will get CERB instead, despite not being eligible for the CERB. Now, are these people counted in the CERB totals, and how will the audits for these people work later because they aren't actually eligible for the CERB?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is another important question, and the brief answer is that we have delivered the CERB both with vigor and with rigor. Vigor because approximately 8 million Canadians have received assistance, and the rigor because from the very start we did say that we would be monitoring and eventually correcting the fraud, all the errors that would have been made in the process.
Chair, I would like to hear the Minister answer with vigor and rigor. Are these people counted in the CERB totals, and how will the audits for these people work later because they actually aren't eligible for the CERB?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a good opportunity to remind the member that we are in the National Public Service Week, and we have full confidence in the ability of public servants to do the work with rigor and with vigor.
Albus.
Well, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, I must say that these answers are not shedding very much light. Is the department separately categorizing these applicants in the system, and are these people being paid out of the EI operating account? Two very simple questions.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm pleased that the member has such great interest in this very important program. 8 million Canadians have received the benefits over the last few weeks. We know how important it is to preserve the social and the economic fabric of our country, and we look forward to providing more information as it becomes available.
Madam Speaker, I'm the bloody critic of this file. every week that I'm here. The issue of parents not qualifying for parental leave due to the loss of job due to COVID is getting worse. This government keeps saying they will fix the problem, but people are having children right now and are not qualified for benefits. When, please, will this be solved, Madam Chair?
Madame la Ministre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is another important question. Two quick answers. First, the issue of mothers being on maternity benefits and not receive the correct amount a few weeks ago was resolved on May the 8th. The other issue to which a member alludes to is going to be resolved. The Minister is fully aware of it.
Brief question from Mr. Albus.
Madam Chair, this Parliament gave massive powers for the Minister of Employment to solve this problem. What is the holdup?
L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, we have put into place an emergency program which is helping millions of workers and families across Canada. We are pleased and very grateful for the work of public servants in delivering those benefits. We look forward to continuing to deliver the important support that Canadians expect and require.
The honourable member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek, Ms. Block.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yesterday, during Committee of the Whole, I asked Minister Anand to simply outline what PPE was being purchased with the $500 million being requested in the estimates. But her answer was somewhat vague and full of generalities. Has Minister Anand been able to meet with her department to get the answer to my questions? And can she provide us with this list today?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank the honourable member for her excellent questions throughout this sitting. I will say that we are continuing to purchase face shields, gloves, gowns, hand sanitizer, N95 respirators, surgical masks, including ventilators and other supplies that Canada's frontline healthcare workers need today, tomorrow, and the weeks and months ahead. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mrs. Block.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Unlike the NDP, Conservatives don't believe in giving the Liberal government a blank check. It is our job to demand transparency on behalf of Canadians. And I have to say that over the course of this session, it has been troubling to not get the answers that we've been asking for. Will the Minister of PSPC uphold the principles of transparency and open government and give us the names of the companies who have received hundreds of millions of tax money in sole-sourced PPE contracts?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the honourable member for her question. I must say that we are still in the middle of the pandemic. We are still in a period of extremely high global demand where our supply chains internationally are at risk. And we, in the interest of protecting those supply chains to ensure that we can get PPE to frontline healthcare workers who need it to protect themselves and Canadians, must keep certain information confidential. I will say, in the interest of transparency, however, we have placed a number of contracts on our website. We have also appeared at committee a number of times, my department and I, and we have a full website.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You know, it is better late than never that the Liberal government has come around to the concept of domestically sourced PPE. Yesterday, during Committee of the Whole, Minister Anand indicated that half of the face shields ordered would be made here in Canada. Can she quantify her answer and tell us how many, at what price, and by when?
L'honorable ministre.
Again, I thank the honourable member for the question. In fact, what I said at committee was that over half of the face shields that have been produced here in Canada, and we will continue to build up and ramp up domestic production so that we can ensure that we have full-scale supply chains operating well into the future if a future stage of this pandemic should occur. Thank you.
Mrs. Block.
Well done.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I thank the Minister for that answer. Can the Minister advise us as to how many manufacturers, Canadian manufacturers, are producing PPE at this time?
The Honourable Minister.
Again, I thank the honourable member for the question. We have signed well over 25 contracts with domestic manufacturers for the production of PPE here at home. We will continue to engage with domestic manufacturers across the country.
Ms. Block.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Can the minister advise us how many contracts we have signed in total?
A brief answer from the minister.
I thank the honourable member for the question. As I said, it's 25 domestic contracts here at home and hundreds across the world. We are ensuring that we meet Canada's healthcare needs.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. How frequently are departmental officials in communication with all of the manufacturers with whom PSPC has awarded a sole source contract for PPE in order to receive updates on their progress?
The Honourable Minister, 12 seconds.
I can assure the honourable member that we are in touch with the manufacturers with whom we have contracts on a highly regular basis because we want to make sure we have the PPE here in Canada to protect frontline healthcare workers.
Brief question.
Madam Chair, are there any companies with whom we have contracts who we have not had any updates from since signing a contract with them?
Answer from the Minister.
Madam Chair, the implication is that we are not on top of this file. I can assure the honourable member and everyone in this House of Commons that we are on top of it, and we will make sure we have the PPE now and into the future.
The honourable member for Drummond, Mr. Champoux. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I will share my time with my colleague. First, an easy question for the government. If it found $1.3 billion, would the government know how to spend it well? The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister. Madam Chair, from the very outset, we have prioritized Quebecers and Canadians. We have put them at the heart of our priorities, including their health and welfare. Thank you very much. The government sounds like a broken record. Now, the internet giants make billions in profits. They're not being adequately taxed. Numbers have been presented by the Parliamentary Budget Officer before the COVID crisis. What is the government waiting for? Why does it not tax the internet giants and send royalties to artists who are struggling these times, and also to Canadian and Quebec companies who pay their fair share of taxes? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for the important question. First of all, over the last few months, the federal government has invested $3 billion in the media and in the arts sector, and over $2 billion through the CERB, and $500 million in emergency measures for the arts sector. Further, we have committed to tabling a bill on the issue of greater fairness with regard to Canadian distributors. Mr. Champoux, indeed, I know that my colleague, the Heritage Minister, is showing a lot of willingness, and I know he wants to implement a royalty system because we've talked about this several times. But when will the government actually bring about a royalty system which is fair and which will treat artists fairly? 22nd answer, please. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Chair. My colleague and myself agree on this issue of fairness. I had committed to tabling a bill before July, but then COVID hit. I know that this bill will now be tabled in the fall. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. During International Milk Day, I would ask for two things for the dairy industry. First of all, I asked that import quotas be adjusted, and the announcement of concrete measures. Now, the first issue was addressed. We're happy with that. Now, compensation. Compensation for dairy producers. When exactly will the compensation come? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased that my colleague is satisfied. Yes, we met the call of dairy producers by extending the ability to borrow to the Canadian Dairy Commission so it can purchase more butter and cheese and therefore regulate the offer better. Now, with regard to compensation for the sector following the signing of the free trade agreement, question. We're not talking about the Canadian Dairy Commission, but we agree with what was done for the Commission. Let me come back to compensation. Dairy producers received a first amount last year, but nothing since then. Eggs, the poultry sector, these sectors have agreed on an amount of compensation. That happened last August, almost a year ago, but now we need a concrete date for dairy producers. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, we have made a firm commitment. We are regularly holding discussions with representatives from that sector. And in fact, all our energy is focused on dealing with COVID, and that's why we've taken various measures. And in fact, the emergency business account could free up $670 million for dairy producers. A final question, Mr. Perron. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm happy we're talking about measures because as it now stands, all of the measures or most of the measures would only increase the debt of dairy industries. They need breathing room. They need compensation. They need it now. It's urgent in this pandemic. Can we please get a specific date? We know what the commitments are. The Honourable Minister, brief answer, please. Madam Chair, no, unfortunately, and I cannot give a specific date at this point, but I can assure the member that our commitment is firm and we will compensate our dairy producers following the free trade agreement signed with the U.S. and Mexico.
Rogers. Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I'd like to begin by stating that I am sharing my time with the member for Davenport. Madam Speaker, in my riding of Bonavista Beer and Trinity, many individuals and local businesses depend heavily on the fishing industry, which has been struggling since the onset of COVID-19. Many have seen a reduction in income and opportunities as a result of shortened catching seasons and increased costs from purchasing extra personal protective equipment to keep employees safe as they return to work, amongst other new and unexpected expenses. Madam Speaker, in April, the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans announced a seafood stabilization fund to help processors increase their capacity and access the domestic retail market. This includes funds to improve and expand refrigeration and freezing systems, purchase or upgrade manufacturing and automated technologies that improve seafood quality and productivity that will help harvesters and processors for years to come. Can the Minister update this House and the industry on how they can apply for this fund so that it will support the fishing industry and local economy in my home province of Newfoundland and Labrador and throughout our coastal communities from coast to coast to coast? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the member from Bonavista Beer and Trinity for the question. Being a member from a coastal community, he knows how important the fish and seafood sector is to our local and rural economies. Madam Speaker, yesterday we were able to announce the opening of the Seafood Stabilization Fund. People will now be able to apply for that fund starting on June 22nd. This is a fund of $62.5 million aimed at processors who will be able to retool their facilities in order to increase capacity with fridges and freezers, as well as making sure that they have available PPE to make sure that their workers stay safe. We also opened the Seafood Fish and Seafood Opportunities Fund, which is going to give us an ability to directly market to the domestic market. Seeing that there's challenges in the export market, we know that the fish and seafood sector is an extremely important part of our economy, and we're encouraging Canadians to purchase local healthy seafood. Madam Speaker, we're going to continue to work with our fish and seafood sector to make sure that they're able to provide for our rural coastal communities. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Member for Davenport.
Madam Chair, Pride season is in full swing here in my riding of Davenport, across Toronto, and indeed right across our nation. Many in June celebrate LGBTQ2+ communities from coast to coast to coast for their resilience, spirit, and solidarity. In true Canadian fashion, Pride is actually celebrated year-round throughout the summer and well into the winter months. This year, you and I may not get a chance to physically partake in the electric vibe of Toronto streets during the annual Pride Parade, one of the largest, loudest, and most fun parades in the country. We may also not get a chance to join the circus and the burlesque artists, singers, dancers, comedians, and all the performers at Fierté Montréal. And in other parts of the country, we may not be able to gather to celebrate together as a community. But one thing's for sure, no matter where you are, no matter when, and no matter how you participate, the message remains the same. Pride is a celebration of a resilient community, the vibrancy of its rich and enduring traditions, and its relentless determination to fight for its rights. Can the Minister for Diversity, Inclusion and Youth tell this chamber what our government is doing to make sure we are continuing conversations and working with LGBTQ2+ Canadians while helping them fight oppression and discrimination?
The Honourable Minister.
Thanks to the member for her commitment to Canada's vibrant and diverse populations, especially in her wonderful riding of Davenport. This Pride season, we reflect on the resilience, spirit, and solidarity inherent to LGBTQ2 communities who have long fought injustice and oppression. It should be known, Pride started as a protest against injustice by Black and racialized trans women, yet we still continue the battle to fight anti-Black racism and other forms of oppression in our country. Our government is committed to supporting LGBTQ2 communities and to achieving equality and inclusion for all. In 2017, Bill 16 received royal assent, which enshrines gender identity and gender expression into the Canadian Human Rights Act and tackles discrimination against LGBTQ2 people. This year, we tabled Bill C-8 to combat the destructive practice of conversion therapy. And for those who are working relentlessly on the ground, we invested a historic $20 million in community organizations to build capacity. This Pride season, although we are celebrating and reflecting more virtually, we honor the people who have brought us to where we are and looking to where we want to go. And Madam Chair, while I'm on my feet, I'd like to wish all celebrating a happy Pride. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie, Mr. Boulerice. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yesterday, the Liberal government took a slap in the face as it failed to gain a seat on the UN Security Council. Is this because the Liberal government is completely missing its GHG reduction targets that it did not obtain the seat? Is the member sharing his time? Yes, I am sharing my time with my colleague from Edmonton Strathcona. The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I can confirm that Canada...
Sorry. Pardon, je suis sur la...
Sorry. I was not on the correct channel. I can confirm that Canada is fighting climate change, and it's something important for us. It's part of our platform for obtaining a seat on the UN Security Council, and we are making efforts, and we understand it's something very important. Thank you, Madam Chair. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Did the Liberals fail at the UN because they forgot Africa and ended the Mali peacekeeping mission after only a few months? Thank you for this question. Canada is committed in Africa. I have had many conversations with my African partners, and as soon as we came to power in 2015, we recommitted. Mr. Boulerice, Madam Chair, did the Liberals not succeed at the UN because they did not stand up for the rights of Palestinians. The Honourable Minister. Madam Chair, as I said on several occasions, Canada is committed to a two-state solution in the Middle East. It is important to be an ally to the Palestinian people. Mr. Boulris, Madam Chair, did the Liberals fail at the UN because they're still selling arms to Saudi Arabia? The Honourable Minister. Madam Chair, as I've said on several occasions, Canada always stands up for human rights. Mr. Boulris. Madam Chair, did the Liberals fail at the UN because the Liberals' foreign aid is lower than that of the Harper government, going down to 0.18% of GDP? One last answer from the Minister. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm very proud of our financial foreign aid. We've put forward a new feminist policy and human rights policy that is based on gender equality, and we are.
Mona.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Like all Canadians, I was deeply disappointed to learn that Canada has once again failed to secure a seat on the United Nations Security Council. We failed under Stephen Harper's Conservatives, and Canada has now failed under this government as well. When the Prime Minister announced that Canada was back in 2015, it was an acknowledgement of how far Canada has fallen behind in our historic role on the world stage. Yet despite that proud declaration, this government has done little about it, and this rejection of Canada by UN member nations is a resounding condemnation of the failure of both the Conservatives and Liberals to understand and seriously commit to a strong international effort. So I have a series of questions for the Prime Minister. You promised to increase Canada's support to UN peacekeeping efforts with 600 military members and 150 policy officers. Yet UN figures show that there were only 35 Canadians deployed on a peacekeeping missions at the end of April. Ireland, with the population equivalent to Alberta, had 473 peacekeepers in the field.
I'm sorry, there is no French translation once again. I apologize. We will check. There's no French translation.
Is it fixed? Are you on the English channel?
I am.
Okay. I would also, while we're waiting to fix this, I just want to also remind the member that she's to address the questions to the chair and not to individual members. Est-ce que ça fonctionne?
Is the translation working?
Fonctionne mieux?
Yes.
Est-ce que ça fonctionne?
Is the translation working?
Just une seconde.
1 second, please.
Of course.
Alors, je veux juste voir. Oui, est-ce que ça fonctionne?
Is it working now, the translation? Ms. Jolie, is it working? Madam Chair? Chair? Who raised the point of order? Minister Jolie. Chair, the issue with the translation, if I may, is not just a technological issue. It's because people are speaking very quickly and our interpreters are having a hard time keeping up. So, out of respect for official languages in this House and to show empathy and respect to our interpreters, I think that our colleagues should be careful about the speed at which they speak. Thank you. So I'd like to thank the member for her intervention. Of course, we want to ensure that the interpreters can translate. So it's very important. If you have any questions written, you should give them to the interpreters. There are several members who speak very quickly, of course, and we have to show respect and take into account that we should offer interpretation for all members. I'd like to ensure that everyone uses their headset that was provided and not their computer. So we're going to move on now.
If you could wrap up, because there's only 1 minute and 15 seconds left, and we did add the additional time and stop the time while the intervention was going. If you would like an answer.
Point of order, it's just that I didn't actually receive the answer to my question.
That's right. So now you'll want the answer, and I'm just saying that the answer may end up being the full amount of your question. So the Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my honourable colleague for her question. I do want to recognize that she has a long history and a long experience in international affairs, and I appreciate that, and I know that we share many of the same values and same objectives. When it comes to Canada's role on the world stage, she is right in that we had a lot of work to do in terms of rebuilding from the decade that Canada had pulled out under Stephen Harper. We had to do a lot of repairing of Canada's reputation. And those are all things that we have been working on over the past 4.5 years. When it comes to peacekeeping, we were proud to participate in the Mali mission. Just earlier this year in January, I had the opportunity to visit Operation Crocodile and the incredible, Canadian personnel who represent our armed forces who work there in leadership positions, who are incredibly well received and well valued. And I know that all of our Canadian armed forces members who participate in peace operations are tremendously valued. Canada has been very much engaged in creating the ELSI initiative to make sure that we are supporting and encouraging and increasing the role of women in peacekeeping. When it comes to women, peace, and security, Canada has leaned in both in terms of our national...
The honourable member for Edmonton Mill Woods, Mr. Upal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While this government continues to fund projects in Ethiopia, and the Prime Minister actually met with the Ethiopian Prime Minister earlier this year, have they raised concerns about human rights abuses and political violence targeting the Oromo people? Or were you more concerned about getting support for your failed UN Security Council bid?
The member that he's to address the questions to the chair, the Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would remind all members that Canada always stands for human rights, and we raise them at every opportunity all around the world. We are confident and committed in this endeavour. I would also say that the work that we have done in...
Mr. Upal.
Madam Chair, I've heard from several small businesses in Edmonton Mill Woods and actually right across the country about regarding bank loans that they have, business bank loans that are now up for renewal. But because of COVID, their revenues are down, and the collateral that they provided, which is most likely the building that they operate out of, may not appraise at the same value. They are concerned that the banks will recall these loans and they will lose everything. Has the government had discussions with banks regarding the situation and encouraged them to work with the businesses?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the honourable colleague for his question. We've been working throughout this pandemic with the credit unions and the financial institutions to make sure that we provide the supports the business need, and we will continue to do that during the next steps.
Upal.
Madam Chair, the CEO of Sequence Energy stated that the supports for the oil and gas sector are, and I quote, deceitful, and he went on to say that he feels like it was fanfare by the federal government to try and provide window dressing to an industry that he says that he's not sure that it actually supports. Simply put, Madam Speaker, more needs to be done to support the oil and gas sector. Will this government provide real support for the oil and gas sector as it promised to do back in March?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, the oil sector and its workers continue to be affected by COVID-19 and the global surge in oil supply. Our government has taken action, including funding to BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan that will clean up to 40,000 inactive and abandoned wells while creating thousands of jobs. And in fact, a study by Alberta Corp Capital said this money could double the entire market for well abandonment and reclamation work in Western Canada and projected to create up to 15,000 to 21,000.
Mr. Upal.
Madam Chair, we've heard time and time again that the current support is just not enough. In fact, analogies that many stakeholders that are using is loan sharking and payday loans to describe the conditions for the help that is available. The government has gutted Alberta's energy sector and taken advantage of its prosperity for far too long. And now in a time of crisis is continuing to show them the cold shoulder. On which date will this government provide real help to help Alberta's oil and gas sector get back on track?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth. Our government understands that businesses in the energy sector are dealing with unprecedented challenges. Through the BCAP program, we are helping SMEs that make up to 85% of the jobs in the sector have access to the liquidity that they need to cover operational expenses during this very challenging time. Many companies are indeed working with their financial institutions, more than 120 financial institutions, I may add. And we.
Mr. Powell.
Madam Chair, there's still no clarity surrounding the extension to the emergency wage subsidy. Small businesses still can't plan for their staffing levels because they don't know if they will actually qualify for the extension. What will the extension of the emergency wage subsidy look like?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Canadians should be confident that their jobs are safe as we continue to fight the global COVID-19 outbreak. That's why we are working to expand the emergency wage subsidy until end of August, and we will continue to monitor and see.
Mr. Powell.
Madam Chair, the feedback window that this government provided for the emergency wage subsidy was less than 2 weeks. Why was the feedback window so short? And has the government now compiled all of its feedback and decided on what the extension will look like?
The last response, the Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Member for his question. Actually, we've been consulting businesses since day one. Yes, we did a look at how wage subsidy can be better, but we are always listening to businesses across the country to better understand how we can support them, and that's our objective, support business across the country.
We will now take a break to allow our personnel to exchange positions. That won't be long.
Alors, on est prêt?
We're now ready.
For Calgary Nose Hill, Ms. Rempel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Media has characterized the loss of the UN Security Council bid as Mr. Trudeau's as opposed to Canada's. Is this because he preaches to the international community about racism, even though he has a history as a blackface practitioner?
The Honourable Minister.
On many occasions, always stands up for human rights. We stand against anti-Black racism. We stand against any kind of discriminatory practices, and we will continue.
Rempel.
Did Mr. Trudeau secure Iran's vote by bowing to its dictatorial foreign minister, failing to get answers on an alleged Iranian government missile strike that killed Canadian citizens, and supporting measures that could harm Israel?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, as I have previously stated, when it comes to the victims of the Ukrainian flight that was downed earlier this year, Canada has demanded justice and transparency. We have been firm and committed to this. We will continue to do everything we can to get justice for the family.
Ms. Rempel?
Sure, Jan. Does Mr. Trudeau think that he lost Canada's votes because he moralizes on women's rights while making female cabinet ministers answer questions about his diminishment of groping allegations laid out against him, suggesting that his accuser had experienced things differently?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, we will take no lessons from the Conservative Party when it comes to women's rights. It was under their government that they cut funding for organizations that provided women a right to choose. It was under their leadership that they walked back women's rights around the world.
Ms. Rempel?
We will continue.
Does Mr. Trudeau think that he jeopardized India's vote for a UN Security Council seat because he pranced around India with a man who was convicted of the attempted assassination of an Indian state cabinet minister?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I would really like to take this opportunity to acknowledge all of the hard work of Team Canada that they put into the UN Security Council campaign. This was a collective effort, and we need to be thankful and so grateful for the incredibly talented.
Ms. Rempel?
Trudeau think that he might have lost Canada votes because while he preached about feminism, Indigenous rights, and upholding the rule of law, he was simultaneously turfing Jody Wilson-Raybould for speaking truth to his privileged power in the SNC-Lavalin scandal.
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, Canada has taken a leadership role when it comes to transparency and openness, when it comes to data collection, when it comes to governance. In fact, one of the top requests I get as International Development Minister is providing technical assistance when it comes to governance.
Mrs. Rempel. Mrs. Rempel.
Does Mr. Trudeau think he lost Canada's bid because despots and authoritarian countries think that he will continue to hand out billions, steak dinners, and Celine Dion concerts with no strings attached while he racks up the Canadian national debt and people in Canada go without?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, it's unfortunate that the member opposite thinks that providing emergency food security assistance to the world's most vulnerable is a waste of our money. It's unfortunate that she thinks that ensuring that women have a right to choose is a waste of our money. It's unfortunate.
Mrs. Rempel?
That we lost a UN Security Council bid. Minister Justin Trudeau is not respected on the world stage. Now that Mr. Trudeau has lost, will he commit to pushing for reform at the UN, securing the release of the Michaels from China, upholding Israel's right to exist as a state, and speaking against authoritarian countries' abuses of democracy or attempt to erode Canadian sovereignty?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I guess the honourable member has not been paying attention because that is what the Prime Minister and this government have done over the last 4.5 years. We have stood by Israel. We have stood by our commitment to a two-state solution. We have stood against authoritarianism. We have worked.
Ms. Rempel?
And we will continue to do
what this
that.
government has done is voted against Israel at the UN, has failed to stand up to China for the Michaels, all for this bid that they didn't secure. So my question is this. Mr. Trudeau yesterday said, Canada is large enough to make a difference, but we know we can't do it alone. Given everything that I've said, and that Mr. Trudeau received less votes than Mr. Harper did, does Ms. Gould think that perhaps Canada would be better off doing it without Mr. Trudeau?
Brief answer from the Minister.
Madam Speaker, Canada is committed to the UN system. We are committed to multilateralism. As a middle power, we know that this is how we will continue to make an influence in the world, and we will do that proudly with our Canadian values at the lead. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Mégantic-L'Érable, Mr. Berthold. Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair, on March 12th, the House unanimously adopted motion to give Mr. Badawi access to consular services. But now with Mr. Trudeau's failure to obtain a seat on the Security Council, will it still offer consular services to Mr. Badawi?
Promotion and protection of human rights, including the right to freedom of expression, conscience, and religion or faith, is an integral part of Canada's foreign policy. We remain extremely concerned by the case of Raif Badawi. We have raised it at the highest levels, and we have repeatedly called for clemency to be granted.
Mr. Berthold, can the minister guarantee that consular services were offered to Mr. Badawi as the House requested?
Canada remains extremely concerned by the situation of Raif Badawi. We have raised this at the highest levels.
Mr. Berthold, since the beginning of this special COVID-19, we've been asking questions to the Liberals, but very rarely do we get answers. Will she perhaps give some answers to questions from citizens in my riding? For example, what is the amount of money that was given to win this UN Security Council seat?
And it's so disappointing that the Conservatives view the incredibly important work that we're doing around the world as a waste of money, whether it is supporting those in urgent need of food assistance, whether it is providing urgent health care needs that they...
Mr. Berthold, once again, no answer. Ms. Bolduc asks, why is the CERB still in place? Many companies will have to close their doors because they lack staff. I understand this aid, but some people, we need to check that some people really need it. Every day people tell me that they'll stay on the CERB because it pays more and they can do as they please. This isn't normal. We need to have employment incentives to encourage people to return to work. The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to remind the member that this is an emergency situation and we have to obtain two objectives. First, to allow people to have access to jobs to go back to work under reasonable conditions. And second, we have to ensure that everyone has money to put food on the table. So no answer from Ms. Bolduc. The Chamber of Commerce is wondering about the criteria for the CERB, and we need to support the economic recovery to ensure that CERB is not another obstacle to this recovery. People need to take on jobs that are available now. The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. The member probably heard my answer earlier that there will soon be an attestation that will be created and people will have to confirm that they could not return to work, a reasonable work, but there are millions of Canadians and many Quebecers who do not have access to a job. Mr. Berthold, when? We don't know when. They're talking soon, but we don't know when. When we'll be able to have access to the emergency account? They made the announcement a month ago, but people still can't get the account at their banks. The Honourable Minister. You can tell your colleagues to come to my office. We'll find a solution for them, and I will count on you to transmit that information to them. Yes, Ms. Briere is wondering if people are really out of work, they should be entitled to EI benefits. So why do we still have the CERB? People go to work, and working should be more attractive than getting the CERB. What is Trudeau's game? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to inform the member that probably in his riding, there should be roughly 20,000 workers who are receiving the CERB, and saying that these workers don't need this emergency aid is not what he should be suggesting, Mr. Berthold. Ms. Bruyere is asking this question rightly, but the COVID-19 committee has allowed Liberals to not answer question. But here's one last example. Can the minister tell us what is the amount of the Canadian deficit to date? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Chair. From the outset, we've invested to support Canadians with these difficult conditions, and we're going to continue to do so to make sure they can continue their work or help their families throughout this crisis.
We'll now go on to Mr. McCauley. Mr. McCauley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's Estimates Week in Ottawa, so I thought I would take a look at some of the government spending. We had an order paper come back recently listing thousands and millions of dollars Canadian taxpayers' money spent on hospitality in just a couple-month period. So I want to start with the CRA. From their departmental plan, they state they're deeply committed to open and honest communication where the CRA is transparent. Now, in the order paper, there's 620 items of hospitality listed, over $1 million of spending, without a single detail release of description of goods, number of employees, attendees, description of the hospitality, except to mention a $2,100 order for Subway. So why is the CRA transparent on nothing except for Subway sandwiches?
The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to tell my colleague that in terms of the CRA, we're very proud of the work that's been done, whether it's for fighting tax evasion or offering services to our customers. We're very proud of that work. And the public service is ensuring that over 8 million people in Canada are receiving the CERB.
Their own departmental plan stated the transparency. I'm sure Jared from Subway would be very proud of that answer. Now, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, also known as OSFI, their departmental plan, now signed by Minister Morneau, states their mandate is to protect, strengthen, and stabilize the financial environment for taxpayers. Yet another order paper question we have shows their spending on office furniture and OSFI in the last 4 years is almost $2 million on brand new furniture, despite the fact that PSPC has warehouses full of furniture available in Ottawa. So how does almost $2 million of furniture for a small department of barely 400 people strengthen the financial environment for taxpayers?
The Honourable Minister.
Since the beginning of this crisis, we've put the priority on Canadians, their health, their safety, and we're continuing to make sure that we provide those services and those programs, and we've been concentrating to make sure that businesses and workers are effectively being supported. We will continue to do this, and we want to prioritize the health and safety of Canadians.
Mr. McCauley.
Now, does the minister realize that OSFI, in violation of Treasury Board Secretariat rules, broke up individual furniture purchases to just pennies under $25,000 per purchase order so they could sole source purchases and not go to competitive bidding?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll answer this question because this involves the Treasury Board. So all of our policies apply during normal conditions, but also in emergency situations.
As arranging for purchases to avoid competitive bidding protect the financial environment for taxpayers, as noted in OSFI's departmental plan?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will answer on behalf of the Minister concerned to assure everyone that all rules in place are being applied rigorously.
Minister of the Treasury Board says all rules are in place. There are 4 purchases made December 30th from the exact same company on the exact same day, every one of them pennies under the $25,000 mark to avoid going to a competitive bid. Does the President of the Treasury Board consider that as following the regulations and the rules?
Honourable Minister for the Honourable President.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to assure him that solemn mechanisms are in place for all circumstances, including the emergency circumstances that we've seen in recent weeks.
I'm going to quote to the Treasury Board President his own rules, because he apparently doesn't realize them. Treasury Board guidelines state contract opportunities for goods over $25,000 must be advertised via the tendering service. OSFI has clearly violated this. 75 individual purchases at pennies below the $25,000, often to the same company on the same day. Would the President of the Treasury Board perhaps consider doing his job and commit to taxpayers today that he will look at this disgraceful conduct of OSFI?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Thank you very much, Chair. This allows me to express my full confidence in the public service and that the Treasury Board will do the work it has done and will continue to do.
With Ms. Atwin. Ms. Atwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The cruel impact of systemic racism is not only felt through law enforcement. Research, data, and lived experiences have made it unequivocal. Racial discrimination impacts immensely the health of racialized and Indigenous peoples. In some cases, it's an issue of life or death. Moreover, the intersection of gender and racism amplifies the consequences. For instance, the documented practice of forced sterilization of Indigenous women, undiagnosed endometriosis, in which symptoms are dismissed or ignored for years, far more often for women of color, the persistence of transphobia, and how the hospital is caring for our 2S LGBTQ+ community. The government made a commitment last fall to work to support studies that take diversity, race, and gender factors into account to improve women's health care. My question is to the Minister of Health. When will we see action on this commitment in an effort to eliminate racism and systemic barriers in the healthcare system?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the question and the importance of this conversation. This is work that our government started doing when we were elected in 2015, and we will continue to build upon that work. I agree with the member that there is more work to do, and that's exactly why I'm working with all departments, all agencies to make sure this work is happening. It's not just about public safety, it's also about health. It's also about equality and equity. It's about making better decisions informed by lived experiences. I can promise you we are not only listening, we are engaging, and we're committed to actions and outcomes. This government, with everyone's help, will get it done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Atwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Fredericton is a riding crossed by a river. On an official map, I will read that its name is the St. John. But for the Wolastoqiyik people, its name is Wolastoq, meaning the beautiful and bountiful river. And it is indeed beautiful. For centuries, the river has been a source of friendship, trade, and identity. We are witnessing here and around the world a movement to reclaim spaces. Colonial stories have been imposed on mountains, statues, streets, and rivers across Canada in an effort to erase and rewrite. If we want a culture to not only survive, but thrive, it must be an integral part of our environment. Indigenous names of spaces are a powerful way to inscribe the landscape with meaning and show reverence. My question is to the Heritage Minister. By working with First Nations communities and respecting their jurisdiction and priorities, will his government lead initiatives to create public policies in recognition of Indigenous place names?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My apologies, technical difficulties. I thank the member opposite for her question and for advocacy in this matter. As she well known, we have in the last mandate adopted a new bill, the Indigenous Language Bill, to help save, promote, and foster Indigenous languages and the revitalization of those languages. We are doing so in partnership with Indigenous communities across the country, and we will continue to do so, Mr. President. Thank you.
Ms. Atwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are approximately 6 million people living with a disability in Canada. Before the pandemic, they were already struggling with inclusion, accessibility, and poverty, and those are issues that have only been exacerbated. This government prides itself on growing the middle class, but we must not forget that the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. Can the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, and Disability Inclusion share exactly how the government plans to support people living with a disability in the following months?
Well, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very important question. We are all mindful of the additional and significant barriers that people living with disabilities have to fight and to live with in the particular circumstances. And that's why we announced just a few days ago that we would be sending up to $600 of additional assistance to people living with disabilities. Unfortunately, we didn't obtain the opportunity of a debate on that last week. We
go back to Ms. Atwin. Ms. Atwin.
Supporting people with disabilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will there be a new bill tabled in the near future that people can count on?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians and all members of this House can count on the clear dedication and commitment of this government to support people with disabilities. We're going to look at all possible.
To Ms. Atwood. Ms. Atwood.
For my last remaining time, I'd just like to wish everyone a happy Father's Day. To my father, Bob, to my husband, Chris, and my stepfather, Ronnie, thank you for all that you do. Bonne fête des pères. Thank you.
We'll now go on to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan.
I've been sharing time with MP McGregor. There's massive confusion in the public about the eligibility rules for CERB. On the government's website of the rules, it is if you are or expected to be without employment or self-employment income for 14 consecutive days in the initial 4-week period. Yet Parliamentary Secretary Adam Vaughan tweeted, quote, apply, you don't need to prove 14 days without any income. For those who follow Adam Vaughan's advice, can the Prime Minister confirm that they will not be penalized and criminalized under Bill C-17?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and that's a very relevant question because it does allude to the important role of the CERB, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which has helped 8 million Canadians in the last few weeks, putting bread on the table. We're going to continue doing this, knowing that there are challenges ahead and still ahead, unfortunately, for millions of Canadians.
The minister refused to answer the question. A disabled senior was not sure if he was eligible, so he called CRA. The agent told my constituent that he should apply anyway. Now he is worried that he would be penalized. Vulnerable people trying to survive the pandemic should not be criminalized. Will the Prime Minister stand down and withdraw all the sections penalizing and criminalizing people trying to get help through CERB?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would say two additional things. The first one is that this support is absolutely essential to millions of workers and families. And second, workers and their families and members of Parliament as well have the right and sometimes the obligation to get support from the CRA. We have committed public servants at CRA who are there to help those vulnerable Canadians.
We have about 38 seconds left.
Accepting that there is massive confusion and contradictory information. If the government proceeds with Part 4 of Bill C-17, will they also be charging Parliamentary Secretary Adam Vaughan for being an accessory to fraud, or would there be another set of rules for the government and versus that of the public?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All members of this House not only have the privilege, but also the responsibility to assist their constituents in the particularly difficult crisis. And we know we can count on all of them to support our vulnerable people in our respective ridings.
We'll now go to Mr. McGregor. Mr. McGregor.
Mr. Speaker, here we are more than 3 months into the COVID-19 pandemic, and I am still hearing from many local small businesses in my riding of Cowichan, Malahat, Langford that the government supports on offer to date simply have not been working for them. Businesses like Sports Traders in Duncan and A to Z Kids Consignment in Langford, both of which have been in operation for over 20 years, may have to close their doors forever because of landlords who are unwilling to participate in or don't qualify for the commercial rental assistance. When will the government step up and fix this program?
Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for that very important question. Our government is working closely with the provinces and territories to deliver the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance, and we welcome the steps that some provinces have taken to further protect commercial tenants, and we expect with these recent actions that the uptake will increase significantly. We will continue to monitor this program to support businesses across the country.
McGregor.
My next question is for the Minister of National Revenue. My office has been working to help V2V Black Hops Brewery, which cannot access the much needed emergency wage subsidy because of a mix up with the CRA. I need the Minister's assurance here and now that her office will commit to fixing this file so that this important social enterprise, which helps homeless veterans, can continue its operations. Will she do so?
Madame la Ministre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the honourable colleague for sharing that example. You know, we have been working on making wage subsidy available, and the eligibility will be up until the end of August. We will come shortly with a new approach to make sure that wage subsidy can be taken by businesses across the country.
We have time for a very short question. Mr. McGregor.
Yes, finally, in the midst of the pandemic, our country's opioids crisis continues its deadly scourge in our communities, especially here in BC. The street supply of drugs is toxic, with record amounts of fentanyl present. Every single one of those deaths is a black mark on federal drug policy. It's time to declare a national health emergency. Will the Minister of Health do so?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I had an excellent conversation with Minister Darcy, the Minister of Addictions and Mental Health from British Columbia, just last night, where we agreed to continue our shared work to ensure that people in BC and indeed across the country have access to harm reduction supports, including safer supply, community-driven treatment, access to safe injection.
Nous allons maintenant continuer avec Madame.
We will now continue with Madame de Bellefeuille. Madame de Bellefeuille. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, everyone knows that the pandemic has called all of us to focus on the pandemic itself, to fight it. But just because of the pandemic, it doesn't mean that people are not suffering from other things like cancer or other serious illnesses. Today, there are people today who were in remission a few months ago, and they've run out of EI sickness benefits. And today they are at a loss. They feel abandoned because on top of having to fight against a recurring cancer, these people don't have the financial means to pay their rent, their hydro bill, their bell bill. And so they are under enormous financial pressure. Why? Because in this House, we were not able to agree on a measure or a change to the EI Act to extend EI sickness benefits. At this moment, many MPs in this chamber know constituents who have cancer and who are left twisting in the wind. So my question is this: will the government, on July 8th, when the House meets again, will the government then table a bill to extend EI sickness benefits from 15 to 50 weeks? The Honourable Minister. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. To begin, I would like to thank the member for having shown so much compassion in her question and for having relayed the concerns of her constituents. Unfortunately, there are families and workers for many weeks now, and some for many years. They've been suffering from illness. They've been able to look after their own needs or those of their loved ones. We've heard the call, and over the last few years, we worked on improving EI benefits, including parental, maternity, compassionate leave benefits. And in fact, we've improved all of the benefits under the EI Act. We will keep on working on this, and we will keep on working on EI sickness benefits because this was a promise we made during the last election campaign. Madame de Bellefeuille. Well, I don't think the minister's words are of comfort for people who are suffering from cancer today and who have run out of their special EI sickness benefits. Last February 8th, a unanimous motion was passed here in the House. It was sponsored by our political party, and the motion called to extend EI benefits back then there was talk of 26 weeks. And back then we didn't know that now, or by July 18th, we would not know that people who are fighting for their survival have no financial means and that they would have heard nothing from the government. So perhaps on July 8th, by unanimous consent, we will all agree to improve the EI sickness benefits regime. So can the minister make a commitment that on July 8th, the government will table this measure, which would simply amend an existing piece of legislation? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will, in fact, again, thank the member for being so aware of the difficult situation so many constituents are finding themselves in. They are suffering from health issues and financial issues. And in fact, it is precisely for this reason that the government introduced the CERB and extended it recently. And this shows that the Canadian government is committed to helping people, to help people look after their health and to make ends meet. The member also talked about a commitment we made in the last election campaign to extend the EI sickness benefits. We are looking forward to working with all members in the House to live up to that commitment. 20 seconds, Madame de Bellefeuille. Well, I'd like to correct the minister. Today, there are people who are sick. They have run out of EI sickness benefits, and they are not eligible for the CERB. They are completely vulnerable. So I would encourage the government to come back on July 8th with a bill, and the leader of the government in the House can be sure that he will have our cooperation to help these sick people. Mr. Minister, Mr. Chair, we are pleased to hear that the opposition parties will collaborate with us because we need to be there for each other.
Chair, so the minister responsible for Chinese mortgages jumps into his chauffeured car, drives across the U.S. border for non-essential travel, drives to New York City, the epicenter of where COVID-19 is in the U.S. Can the Prime Minister or House Leader confirm when the minister gets back he will be quarantined for 14 days?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can confirm that the minister will be quarantining for 14 days.
Mr. Steinle.
So Minister Champagne was able to attend the vote in New York City. Does the House Leader know how many people were present at the United Nations for these votes?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can confirm that during the votes that appropriate measures were taken to physically distant. That's in fact why the vote at the United Nations started at 9 a.m. and didn't wrap up until 2 p.m.
Mr. Steinle.
Very, very simple question. Was there more or less than 500 people at the vote at the UN?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the reason why the vote took from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. was to have a limited amount.
To Mr. Steinle. Mr. Steinle.
Was there more or less than 1,000 people at the vote at the UN?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, the United Nations, of which has all been working from home over the past 3 months, specially convened.
Go back to Mr. Steinle.
Thank you. So I think I'm trying to make the point here. The Liberals are absolute hypocrites with respect to shuttering Parliament. They've told Canadians that it was unsafe for members of Parliament to meet in this chamber. Then they attend and vote in person in New York City. So I'm asking once again, do they know how many people were involved in the vote at the UN?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes, the Honourable Government House.
Thank you very much. This is totally far from the truth, Mr. Speaker. We're here, we're debating, there's people on the screen that we answer questions every day, Mr. Speaker. We actually answered 2,965 questions from the opposition since the beginning of the pandemic. 67% more than usual Parliament, Mr. Speaker.
Finally.
Oh, I'd say they've responded. They haven't answered one question over the last 3 months, Mr. Speaker. So I wouldn't say they've answered anything. And no one in Saskatchewan, Alberta thinks they answer a question any day in this chamber. If the foreign minister can go to New York City for an in-person vote, and if the Prime Minister can take a drive to an Ottawa business for a campaign stop, then surely this House should be able to operate safely in the full Parliament. When will the Liberals admit that shutting down Parliament was about avoiding accountability and hiding from Canadians, not about safety?
Mr. Rodriguez.
Again, Mr. Speaker, almost 3,000 questions from the opposition, way more than regular sittings, Mr. Speaker, with their colleagues on the screen. Why is he against the participation of his colleagues on the screen, Mr. Speaker? Why?
Mr. Steinley.
I'm not against my colleagues on the screen. I'm against you guys being unaccountable. Residents of Regina and Louvain want to know how this government plans to pay for the programs that they've rolled out over the last few months.
The Honourable Minister. One moment. We've got the clock stopped, so we're not losing any time. We'll just give the minister some time to clock in. Sometimes technology is not the easiest.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable colleague for his question. We have prioritized the health and safety of Canadians since day one. Our country is in a very strong physical position, and we will continue to support Canadians and workers.
Go back to Mr. Steinley. Mr. Steinley.
How high will this government have to raise the GST to pay for all their reckless spending over the last 5 years?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been providing support, relief to Canadians since the beginning of this pandemic.
Back to Mr. Steinley. Mr. Steinley.
Thank you very much. With the little time I have left, I'll leave my honourable colleagues who are currently in government a little bit of advice. Canadians will only tolerate inaction and being left leaderless for so long. There's a second wave, and there's another complete lockdown that is going to cripple our economy and suspend people's freedoms and personal decision-making abilities. This is not going to fly with Canadians. This Prime Minister will actually have to find some leadership and start making some tough decisions instead of hiding under the bed in his closet and poking his head out just for his 10-minute daily performance. When will this government put pen to paper and bring forward a plan that puts Canadians first and puts Canada back on track?
The Honourable Minister.
Put Canadians first, always. We have been helping our seniors, our students, our families, our workers, our businesses, all Canadians from each and every province, Mr. Speaker, and we'll keep on doing that because it's the right thing to do, even if they don't think so.
We're 2 seconds is not enough for an answer, or a question and answer. I'm afraid I'm going to have to dispute that one. So that's the end. Nous voici donc rendus à la...
So we've come to the end of the last meeting of the Special Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm grateful to the many members who participated in its proceedings, not only for their attendance, but also for their patience as we learn to adapt to these very different circumstances.
Talented and dedicated employees of the House administration for having made these unique hybrid meetings possible. Despite the many personal and professional challenges posed by the pandemic, they came together from across the organization to fulfill their commitment to support the work of members.
In closing, I want to wish everyone a wonderful summer, although it'll probably look different than what you had planned, but I hope it will involve leisure time with the people you love.
Everyone, a wonderful summer. I declare this meeting adjourned.